Ladies and gentlemen, it's star time. Jury's Hotel proudly present Ireland's international comedian, Hal Roach.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Jury's. Before we start tonight, there's somebody smoking turf. Hey, I'm sure there is. I've just been in Cabaret in Donegal, this lovely part of Ireland. Fantastic. I was playing in a beautiful hotel, half Jewish, half Catholic, called the St. Levi. I have a lot of Jewish friends in Donegal, beautiful people, I adore them. I heard two of them talking in the bar the other night. One said to the other, "I'm sorry to hear your factory was burned down." His friend said, "Shh, it's tomorrow." Tomorrow. Dear God. Yes, listen. If there's anybody here tonight super sensitive, that is a joke. The next day I went for a walk. I met a man with a huge dog, so big, so I stopped him. I said, "Where are you going with the dog?" He said, "I'm going to have him destroyed." I said, "Is he mad?" He said, "Well, he's not too pleased." It's a big dog, yes. There's another fella sitting in the middle of the street with a fishing rod, casting the line into the middle of the street. Now, come on, let's be honest, there's none of us perfect, as you know. We all have our problems. So I decided to be nice to him. I said, "How many have you caught today?" He said, "You're the 9th. You can't win." But the Irish humour, ladies and gentlemen, is so unpretentious that it is acceptable to people all over the world for this very reason. Now, the other day, there's a fella driving in his car here in Ireland, and this big cop on a motorcycle waved him down. He pulled him to the side, he put the window of the car down, and the cop said, "Did you know your wife fell out of the car about 4 miles back?" He said, "Thank God, I thought I'd gone deaf." Write that down, it's a good one. Write it down. Nun stories. You don't hear many nun stories, do you? We got a nun in tonight down there. Now listen, sister, you can write this down and bring it back to the Reverend Mother. My God, I think she is the Reverend Mother, but anyway, not to worry. 2 nuns went shopping to a big supermarket here in Dublin, and they were driving in a red mini car. When they got there, they couldn't find a place to park. One nun said to the other, "You go in and get the groceries and I'll keep driving around till you come out." And she did that. She went in, got the groceries, came out, couldn't find the nun or the car. There's a man standing at the corner, and she walked up to him and said, "Excuse me, have you seen a nun in a red Mini?" And he said, "Not since I took the pledge." I love it. Write it down. But you know, ladies and gentlemen, booze has a profound effect on the Irish. Do you know that? We only drink in Ireland to forget we're alcoholics. You can't be sober here, no way. I mean, the hospitality is unbounding. You go to somebody's house, a party, a hotel, it doesn't matter where you go. As soon as you arrive, 6 large drinks are put in front of you right away. They say, "Come on now, get that down, it'll do you good. Drink that, empty that, pour that into you. Don't forget that one. Get it down, drink it, get it down." 2 hours later, they have you over the sink, saying, "Come on now, get it up. You'll be all right. You'll be all right when you get it up there." It's true. You know, I watch people coming out of bars at night in Ireland when they close. It's a psychological study to watch them. They're all beginning to walk like this with the head up. Not to spill any. Honest to God. I was in a bar the other night. I'm in a bar every night, but not to worry. And there's a new clinic, you see, just opened in Dublin for alcoholics. It's a closed shop, you can't get into it. It's true. But this clinic is different. The doctors and nurses drink all day with the patients. We don't get many cures, but the days just fly by, you know that. It's fantastic. Anyway, in this bar, there was 2 fellas sitting at the bar beside me discussing the potency of whiskey. One said Scotch whiskey was stronger than Irish whiskey. His friend said, "No way." He said, "Irish whiskey is dynamite." He said, "Last week, my wife and I drank a bottle of Irish whiskey. We went to bed, got up the next morning, and went to 7 o'clock mass." His friend said, "What's unusual about that?" Lots of people drink a bottle of Irish whiskey and go to Mass the next day. His friend said, I know, but we're Jewish. So you want to watch that stuff, it'll kill you. But let's get back to Irish humour. You see, Irish humour is so beautiful. The other day, a man picked up the telephone and he phoned Irish International Airlines and he said to the girl on the telephone, how long does it take the jumbo to fly from Shannon to New York? The girl said, just a minute. He said, good God, that's fantastic, and he put the phone down. Yes, this is the best side over here, by the way. This is it's a lot of class over here tonight, it really is. The Irish International Airlines have just come up with a fantastic gimmick to boost the business. During the transatlantic flights from Shannon to New York, they're going to allow the second-class passengers to go up to the first-class section to beg. And, yeah, beg, it'll help. It'll make a few bucks, you know. Yes, it will. The other day at Dublin Airport, I got talking to a man who was waiting for his brother to fly in from New York that he hadn't seen for 45 years, and we got talking as people will. I said, when he gets off the plane, will you know him? He said, no, I haven't seen him for 45 years. He didn't even send a photograph. I said, will he know you? He said, of course he'll know me. Sure, I haven't been away. Simple, isn't it? Write it down. It's a good one. There's a very famous organization in America called the Welfare. Did you ever hear of it? It's a closed shop. You can't get into it, really. This, of course, we have the same thing in Ireland, you see, but here we call it the labour exchange, but theoretically it's the same thing where you go to get money when you're not working. And this fellow went to the labour exchange or the welfare and he said to the man, I'd like to get some money. And the clerk said, tell me something about your assets. What visible means of support do you have at the moment? And the fellow said, I have 35,000 shares in Guinness's brewery. And the clerk said, good. Have you got a house? He said, I have 3 houses, fully furnished and paid for on the outskirts of Dublin. And the clerk said, good. Have you got a car? He said, yes, I have a Rolls Royce outside the door. And the clerk said, you're joking. He said, well, you started it. There was this fella in Dublin, and you know what he did? He bought one of these Japanese motorcycles, a Yamaha, I think you call it, yes. And he, what? No, Yamaha. Also, he brought the Yamaha back to the village and he caused great excitement. They'd never seen the like of it before, you see. And this fella's name was Casey, by the way. And he said to his pal Murphy, get up on the back of the Yamaha and go for a ride on the bike. And they did that. They were gone about a mile when the roars of Murphy could be heard 4 miles away, shouting at us, stop the bike, for God's sake, stop! The wind is cutting the chest out of me. So Casey said to him, what you want to do is this. Take off your jacket, turn it back to front, button it up here, and that'll stop the wind getting at the chest. I'm sorry for laughing. I know the ending of this. Listen. I think we all do, but not to worry, you see. So Murphy took off his jacket, turned it back to front, buttoned it up here, got up on the Yamaha, and off they went again. They were gone about a mile when Casey turned round to see how he was getting on, and so he wasn't there at all. And he was missing as well. So he turned the Yamaha around and went back the road and found Murphy sitting in the middle of the road, surrounded by about 6 farmers. And Casey said, in the name of God, is he all right? And this farmer said, well, sir, he was all right when we got here, but since we twisted his head back the right way, he hasn't spoken. Ah, you're lovely. You really are. But you know, before I opened here at Jury's, I was in Africa for a couple of weeks. I went to Bechuanaland, very exciting. And when I was in Africa, I met the chief of the... tribe. They get that name because they run through the high grass with no trousers on. That'll be funnier in the morning than it is now, believe me. Can you just imagine that, by the way? My God, I can even feel it. However, it's... Back to Irish humour. The FBI sent a photograph of a wanted criminal to the Irish police, and the picture was in 3 poses, front face and 2 side shots, and the message said, "We believe he's in Ireland, keep a lookout for him." 3 weeks later, the Irish police sent back a message with the picture, and it said, "We got the fella in the middle, but we're still looking for the other 2. Write it down, it's a good one. Write it down. But you know, ladies and gentlemen, I have been here at juries for many years, and during that time it's been my privilege to meet people from all over the world. Many things fascinate people about Ireland. They like the people, the 40 shades of green, and the weather. You've been lucky with the weather. It's not always this good. Believe me. 4 months ago, a man came from Los Angeles to Dublin for rheumatism. He got it in 2 days. But we're different. It's nice to wake up in the morning and open the window and listen to the birds coughing. It really is. It's very nice. People are fascinated by many things about Ireland, but you know what they really enjoy? They really enjoy listening to the way we talk. You see, the Irish, we are unique when we talk because we say things that aren't necessary, and people find it very amusing. What do we mean by unnecessary remarks? Well, you could live here all your life and your neighbour live beside you, and they'll still greet you in the morning, something like this. "Good day to you. Is that yourself?" I mean, who else, for God's sake? Come on. Or sometimes you're walking down the street and somebody recognises you and they say, "Ha ha, there you are." I love that one. That's a brilliant deduction, that is. I was sitting at that table last night after the show, and a man from Galway recognised me, and he walked up to me and he said, "Excuse me," he said, "have you not gone home yet?" And him looking at me, sitting at the... But we do talk like that. There was 4 fellas standing outside juries the other night, and this big cop went up to them and said, "If you fellas want to stand there now, you'll have to move on." I wrote it down. I really did. 2 fellas met in Galway the other day in the street, and one said to the other, he said, "Flanagan, where were you going this morning when I saw you going to work?" And Flanagan said, "Sure, I was going to work." And the other fella said, "I thought it was you, but when I'd caught up to you, you were gone." I love the one about the 2 fellas working on a building site, a construction site. And there's one fella up on the roof, 5 floors up, and his pal called up to him and said, "Flanagan, don't come down that ladder, I'm after taking it away." It's too much. 3 weeks ago, I was standing at a bus stop in Dublin. There was 25 of us standing at the bus stop. We were waiting for the bus at the time. See, I just said it myself, yes. And this fella walked up to me and he said, "Do you know what I'm going to tell you?" No way. He said, "If we all get on this bus, there'll be about half of us left behind." There's a fella walking along O'Connell Street here in Dublin, and there's a big hole in the road. There's always a big hole in the road in Dublin, by the way. And he falls into the hole, he's stuck, he can't get out. This fella comes along, sees him stuck in the hole and says, "Are you after falling down in that hole?" And the fella in the hole said, "Not at all." He said, "I just happened to be down here and they built the pavement around me." Isn't it fantastic? It really is. You know, I mean, it goes on and on. There's a little village, by the way, called Killaloe, County Clare, not far from Shannon Airport. I've known the postman there for 20 years. His name is Pat Cassidy. Last week in a hotel in Killaloe, I said to the barman, "How is Pat Cassidy getting on?" He said, "He's not. You can forget about him. You'll not be seeing him again. We had to bury the man. He was stone dead." He said, "He's finished, passed on, gone over, deceased, gone home, demised, buried, 6 foot down. You wouldn't know him. He's finished, stone dead, gone home, finished, buried, demised, in a box. He's gone. You'll not see him again. He's finished, gone, gone over, finished, gone, dead." I said, "He's dead then?" "Oh," he said, "finished, gone, 6 foot down, buried and all, dead, finished, gone." I said, "When did he die?" Well, he said if he'd lived till next Thursday, he would have been dead a month. Now, figure that out because I couldn't. My nerves wouldn't stand it, really. It's too much, it really is. You may well know, you see, we have a big traffic problem in Dublin. The one-way streets, they're changing them every day. Honest to God, we don't know where we are. It's an accident if you get home. And Grafton Street is the most important one-way in this town. And this woman decides to drive up Grafton Street. And this big cop said, "Stop! And don't move as well." He said, "Where do you think you're going?" She said, "I don't know, but I must be late. Everybody coming back." Oh, yes. Oh, dear God. Well, listen, you may well wonder what part of Ireland I come from, ladies and gentlemen. I come from Waterford, where the lovely crystal is made. All my family live there. I have 5 brothers, 3 alive and 2 in the civil service. But we don't talk about them, yes. My mother is 80 years old. She thinks television is a town in Israel. You'd feel sorry for people like that. You really would. Some time ago on a bus, I was on a bus going down to Waterford to see my mother, and this fellow walked up to me and he said, "Excuse me, are you reading that newspaper you're sitting on?" Well, there's no answer to that. I mean, There was this fella with one eye called Casey. I don't know what his other eye was called, but... Oh, dear God. Anyway, he's driving this big truck down in County Kerry, and in Ireland we have these rather low railway bridges, and he's driving the truck under the bridge and he jams it stuck fast. He can't move it. And this big cop comes along, stands watching him for a half an hour, trying to move it. And eventually the cop said to him in eloquent brilliance, he said, "Are you stuck?" And Casey said, "No, I was delivering the bridge and I lost the address." Write it down. But you know, ladies and gentlemen, I love children. I adore children. I used to go to school with them, and a long time ago, I've just written a book about kids. They fascinate me. This little Catholic boy said to this little Jewish boy, "Our parish priest knows much more than your rabbi." And the Jewish kid said, "Of course he does, because you tell him everything." There's a little boy at school down in County Kerry during the geographica lesson, and the teacher said, "Son, what's a Hindu?" And the child said, "It lays eggs." Hindu. Do you get it? Thank God for that. Anyway, this little boy said to his daddy one morning in the kitchen, he said, "Daddy, where's the Taj Mahal?" And the father said, "Ask your mother. She puts everything away in this house." The teacher said to this child, she said, "Son, what's the difference between 67,229 and 48,522? And the child said, "That's what I say too. What's the difference?" I mean, doesn't matter. But this is my favourite child story. I've been telling this story for years. I love it. It was the geographical lesson, and she said to this child, she said, "Now, son, here's the question." She said, "Who knocked down the walls of Jericho?" And the child said, "Well, it wasn't me." Well, of course, the teacher was amazed at such a ridiculous answer. And the next day, she met the child's mother out shopping, and she said, "I'm rather worried about your son because at school I asked him who knocked down the walls of Jericho, and he said it wasn't him." And the mother said, "If my child said he didn't knock that wall down, he didn't do it." Well, of course, the teacher was stunned. And the next day she went to visit the child's father in their home. He was lying in bed at the time looking for work. Well, work is a very delicate subject in Ireland, do you know that? Half of the men in Ireland think manual labour is the Spanish ambassador. Anyway, she said to the father, "I'm very worried about your son because at school I asked him who knocked down the walls of Jericho and he said it wasn't him. And then I told your wife what happened and she said, if my child said he didn't knock that wall down, he didn't do it." And the father said, "Well, I don't want any trouble. How much did this wall cost?" Tonight we have a mayor in from America. As a tribute to him, I would like to tear a replica of the Dublin Lord Mayor's chain from this piece of paper. I went to see the doctor. I was sitting in the doctor's waiting room reading these magazines they have on the table. And I remember, by the way, wasn't it dreadful about the Titanic? This doctor was a funny man. I wish I were. But listen, I stopped smoking. I quit. I didn't have much choice. You see, the doctor took a couple of pictures of my chest. He said if you continue to smoke, I wouldn't advise you to buy any long-playing records. When they put it like that, you listen. He said, raise your right leg, and I did. He said, hold it up high, and I did. Now he said, leave it there, and I did. Now he said, I want you to raise your left leg. And I did. I fell flat on my back. He said, how long have you had these dizzy spells? Can't win. Up at the golden gates of heaven there are two big signs, and written on one sign it says, stand here all the men who were henpecked by their wives on earth. 5 million men standing beside it. Another big sign it says, stand here all the men who were not henpecked by their wives on earth. And there's one little fellow, Riley, standing there on his own. And St. Peter said, Riley, why are you standing there on your own? And Riley said, me wife told me to stand here. But the Irish people are basically shy, ladies and gentlemen. Irishmen are shy. This is true. This is why we don't marry till late in life, because we're so shy. I mean, the average Irishman, when he's courting his woman, he can't say to her, I love you, will you marry me? These words stick here. He can't get them out. So he has to put his, he's got to put it another way. Like the proposal of marriage I heard about in Donegal about 3 weeks ago. This fella went up to his woman and said, how would you like to be buried with my people? Romantic, isn't it? But you know, I'm an avid fisherman. I love fishing. Recently in Waterford, where I come from, I went down there to fish. Now, there's always one genius in every village that knows where the big ones are, isn't that right? It's true, so I met him. He said, I'll show you where they are. So he brings me along. He said, now here, we have them in the thousands. Salmon, that size. Huge, he said. You don't even need a fishing rod. They're so plentiful, you can lean over into the water and pull them out with your bare hands. I said, you're kidding. He said, I'll show you. So we go along, and there it is, and there's a little bridge. Now, he said, lean over the bridge, and I lower you down by the legs, and you can pull one up. I must have been out of my Chinese mind, you know that. I leaned over the bridge. He lowered me down by the legs. I panicked. I got hysterical. I said, for God's sake, get me up quick. He said, did you get one? I said, no, there's a train coming. I was in a bar the other night, the door burst open, and this little fella came in visibly agitated, and he was annoyed as well. He looked around the bar and he said, I want to know who painted my donkey green outside the door. And this big fella like John Wayne stood up and said, I did. What about it? And the little fella said, I just wanted to tell you that the first coat is dry. We had a Scotsman here last night, by the way, sitting at that table. And I said, what are you doing in Dublin? He said, I'm here on my honeymoon. But he was alone. So I said, where's your wife? He said, she's back in Scotland. She's been to Dublin before. There was this fellow working in Dublin here in Guinness's in the huge big vat, the huge big whiskey vat, and one day he fell into it. 3 of his mates dived in to try and save him, but he fought them off. And of course he was drowned. On the death certificate it read, cause of death, ecstasy. And then he was cremated. It took 3 weeks to put the fire out. One of the great things about being in show business is the way you travel all over the world. Millions of miles every year. The far ends of the globe. I've been to Wexford, Sligo, Donegal. Have you been to Donegal? What a town. You plug in your electric razor, the street lights dim, honest to God. Anybody here from Donegal? That's a joke. Listen. Oh, yes, no, I'm no mug. Listen to this. In Donegal, by the way, and the food is so expensive up there. It really is. It's cheaper to eat the money. I went to a restaurant. There was a T-bone on the menu for 50 pence. I said to the waitress, that's very reasonable. She said, it's £9 if you want meat on it. Yes. trying to find a place to stay. It's ridiculous. There's one double room in the hotel, and there's a fella already in there, and the manager said, Mr. Roach, no way can I put you in with this man, because you won't get a night's sleep. He snores like a bull. You'll be up all night. I said, I got to take someplace, and I did. I went upstairs, came down the next morning. He said, how did you make out with the snoring? I said, there wasn't any. He said, how did you manage that? Well, I said, I went upstairs, and he was sitting on the bed reading, and I went over, and I kissed him, and he stayed awake all night watching me. And the following morning, now this is what makes Ireland famous. Listen to this. The following morning, there's a knock at the bedroom door. I opened the door. It was the porter. He said, excuse me, sir, was it 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock you wanted to be called? I said, I wanted to be called at 9 o'clock. I said, what time is it now? He said, it's 11 o'clock. Lovely stuff. It really is. And no, thank you. God. The last Sunday I was down in Kilkenny doing a show, and now listen to this, and I'm driving back at midnight, and I'm running short of petrol, and there's a man walking towards me, and I said, excuse me, are there any all-night 24-hour petrol stations in Kilkenny? He said, yes, sir, 4 of them. I said, could you direct me to one of them? He said, I could, but they'd be all closed now. We're the greatest. We really are. Even today now, just to digress from the Irish for a while, I was at a meeting today, did a, sort of press reception, you see, at the French embassy today. Funny men, these Frenchmen, aren't they? They really are. One of them kissed me on both cheeks. It was very embarrassing. I was tying my shoe at the time. However, yes. Well, listen, the thing is, now listen to this. I live in a bungalow, and this fella lives in a bungalow beside me, exactly the same in every detail. And recently he wallpapered his front room, and I said, how many rolls of wallpaper did you use? He said 9, so I said, I'll do the same. So I got 9, finished mine, and I met him the next day. I said, you did say 9 rolls, didn't you? He said, yes. I said, well, I finished papering my front room, I said, and I discovered from the 9, I had 3 rolls of wallpaper left over. He said, God, that's funny, so did I. What do you do with that? But I got a few stories for you now, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to go hysterical. You really are. Please God, one of you will go hysterical, and then I'll get you to mingle. However, yes, two cannibals in the jungle, and this missionary came by on a bicycle, and one cannibal said to the other, look at that, meals on wheels, meals on wheels. Well, please yourselves. Listen, I'm enjoying myself. That's the main thing. I mean, I'm not going to worry at the money I'm getting. Honest to God, I could have phoned this in. But listen, this fella went to the furrier, and he said to the assistant, I'd like to buy a muff to keep me hands warm. She said, of course. What fur? He said, I just told you to keep me hands... I don't know what to say, ladies and gentlemen. I'm quite overcome at that outburst. I really am. I love this kind of thing, I really do. A fellow went to the library, and he said to the librarian, could you recommend a good book? She said, would you like something light? He said, it doesn't matter, I have the car outside. Now, yes. A woman of 65 married a man of 80, and they spent their honeymoon trying to get out of the car. And, well, 80 for God's sake, come on. Twilight Zone. But the thing is, yes. And the following year, she went to the doctor, and the doctor confirmed the good news to her, you see. Yes. She said, you're out of your Chinese mind. I can't be. I'm 65 years old. He said, but you are. My God, she said, can I ring my husband and tell him? He said, yes. So she picked up the phone. She said, Paddy, I'm pregnant. And he said, who's speaking? It's not a sin to laugh at that now, honest to God. It really isn't. No way, no way. But women, let's talk about women for a few fleeting moments. You'll never understand women, ladies and gentlemen. You never will. Now, my wife, who is a relation of mine by marriage, an angel always up in the air and harping about something. But anyway, the thing is, she... Drive you bananas, they would, honest to God. They really would. Oh, you never understand them. If you come home early, they think you want something. You come home late, they think you've had... I don't know. The thing is, you can't get... No, listen, you can't win. No way can you win with women, honestly. It's ridiculous. It really is. I had two fellas talking in the bar the other night. One fella said, "You seem upset." He said, "I am upset." He said, "The wife reversed the car out of the garage this morning." And the other fella said, "What's unusual about that?" And he said, "I reversed it in the garage last night." Think about that one now for a minute. Anyway, my wife, I first met her in the tunnel of love. She was digging it. And, you want to meet her brother? He's a right twit, the brother. He doesn't drink, smoke, or go with girls, and he makes all his own dresses. And, there's a lot of it about. But listen, he's such a twit, he thinks the anti-litter campaign is a new kind of pill for dogs. And he... Dog, litter. Litter, dog, dog, litter. I think we say the rosary and go home, honest to God. Anyway, my wife and I, a lovely woman, we went on a cruise on a honeymoon. Yes, the ship was so old, the funnel was made of thatch. And written on the side, it said, "Romans, go home." But anyway, the cruise. I mean, these cruises, I was so seasick. I'm a bad sailor. I was so ill on board, I sat in a green deck chair for 4 days and nobody noticed me. That's bad. I was dying. I went to the doctor on board. He said, "Put your tongue out," and I did. He said, "For God's sake, don't put that back in your mouth. You'll poison yourself." I was dying. I said, "Doctor, you know those pills you gave me to give me strength?" He said, "Yes." I said, "I can't get the top off the bottle." "Where are you?" "Because I don't need these, but they're cheaper than buying a dog." I went to the optician's last week. I said, "I think I need new glasses." He said, "I thought you did as soon as you walked through the window." Through the window. Anyway, when we got back from the honeymoon, I said to the wife, "I feel like a new man." She said, "So do I." And you can't win them all. She's a lovely woman, you know. I take her everywhere with me. We went to London. I took her to Madame Tussauds, the waxworks. Very interesting. We went downstairs to see the Chamber of Horrors. We were standing there watching the exhibits when the attendant whispered in my ear. He said, "Keep that woman on the move. We're stock taking." Lovely, yes. Drinks like a fish, this woman. This woman, and she's getting so big, honest to God, she's so big. I'll tell you how big she is. 3 weeks ago, she hung a pair of her knickers out on the line, and the gypsies moved into them. And big woman. Oh yes, her x-rays are in CinemaScope. But listen, the doctor put her on a diet of bananas and peanuts. She didn't lose any weight. You want to see her climbing trees. This one. The greatest. And people have been telling her that I am chasing the women. She said, "Let him chase women. You see dogs chasing cars, but they can't drive." And, it's a clever gag, that. It really is. But like all married couples, we have our little tiffs and our little arguments, but we never go to bed until we make it up. Once we were up for 8 months. I was jaded. Thank you. Here's a little favourite story of mine. I hope you like this one. It's about this little baby snake. Came in crying to the mammy snake. And the mammy snake said, "Why are you crying?" And the baby snake said, "It's the snakes next door. They won't let me hiss in their pit." Yes. I think I got that right. Yes. And the mother snake said, "Never mind them." She said, "I knew them when they hadn't got a pit to hiss in." Oh. I don't mind telling you, I'm glad that's over. I really am. I'm terrified to take a drink before I come on, telling that, yes. No, we were talking about a bus now the other day. I was on this bus and there's 2 ladies sitting in front of me. And you know when you're sitting on the bus, you don't mean to listen to what the people in front of you are saying, do you? You do, yes. And I did. And one lady said to the other, she said, did you hear about Mrs. Flanagan? She had her appendix taken away last Tuesday. And the other one said, it serves her right. Had she put that in her husband's name, they couldn't have touched it. And at the back of me, there's two ladies talking as well. And one said to the other one, she said, I believe you lost your man. Oh, yes, she said, he's gone. Gone, she said, gone, finished, gone. He went quick, you know. And the other one said, what happened? Well, she said it was a Sunday morning, and he went out into the garden to pick a head of cabbage for the dinner. And she said, didn't he drop? And wasn't that the end of him? And the other one said, my God, she said, what did you do? And she said, what could I do? I had to open a can of peas. That's what I like about you, you're quick. But the big gimmick in Ireland today is these Turkish baths. You know, the sauna baths and the Turkish baths, they really are becoming a first-class attraction. And of course, everybody's trying them, including me. I decided the other day to have a Turkish bath, and I arrived at this place, and when I got there, it was all steam and white tiles and steam everywhere. So I took all my clothes off. And when the steam cleared, I was in a fish and chip shop. But the other day, I must tell you, I was driving my car down to Limerick, and I saw a priest standing at the bus stop, and God love him, standing there with all this big, heavy suitcase. And being a gentleman, I stopped the car. I said, Father, can I give you a lift? I'm on my way to Limerick. He said, so am I. I said, good. So I opened the trunk of the car, and I put this huge, big case in the back, and I sat in beside him, and off we went to Limerick. And we had a great chat on the way down. And when we got to Limerick, I took him directly to the parochial house, opened the back of the trunk of the car, took this huge big suitcase and brought it into the hallway. And I was just leaving, and he said, well, Mr. Roach, I'm very grateful to you, and I'd like to give you something for your trouble. I said, not at all, Father, I couldn't accept anything. It's a pleasure. Oh, be God, he said, I wouldn't have it on my conscience. I'll have to give you something. He said, do you take a drink? I said, I do. Well, he said, kneel down and I'll give you the pledge. There's this fella the other day, and he went to a fish shop in Dublin, and he said to the man, I'd like some plaice and chips. And the fella said, we don't sell it, we only have cod, we've no plaice. Well, he said, I don't want cod, I want plaice. And the fishman said, we haven't got it. Well, he said, it says in the window, plaice. And the fishman said, I know, but we haven't got it, we only have cod. Well, the fella says, I won't go out without it. I want the plaice. So the fishman said, listen, he said, I'll put it to you this way. He said, if you took the S out of skate, what would you have? The fella said, Kate. He said, if you took the C out of cod, what would you have? And the fella said, odd. He said, if you took the flip out of place, what would you have? And the fella said, there's no flip in place. He said, that's what I'm trying to tell you. There was... But the Irish government have just come up with a marvellous idea to stop unemployment. They're going to raise the school leaving age to 45. How about that? I want to tell you a story. There was this old man, you see, and he lived alone, and he was very deaf, and he couldn't hear as well. And he had a parrot inside the front door on a perch, and this parrot was a marvellous talker, you see, fantastic. And one night, the old man went to bed. Of course, he went to bed every night, but this was a special night. And the next morning, the milkman arrived at the door, and he knocked at the door, and the parrot inside the door said, who is it? And the fellow said, it's the milkman. And the parrot said, who is it? He said, it's the milkman. And the parrot said, who is it? He said, it's the milkman. And the parrot said, who is it? He said, it's the milkman. And the parrot said, who is it? He said, it's the milkman. I hope to God I remember the ending of this. Anyway, the parrot said, who is it? He said, it's the milkman. Well, anyway, this went on for about an hour and a half. I won't bore you with the details. And eventually, after an hour and a half, the milkman passed out with exhaustion on outside the door, answering this thing back. And just then, the old man upstairs thought he heard something, you see, and he came down, and he opened the door, and he said, who is it? And the parrot said, it's the milkman. But thank you very much indeed. But it's a... I met a fellow the other day. He's just arrived back from his holidays. He went to Spain. I said, what part of Spain did you go? He said, I went to San Jose and San Juan. Of course, I explained to him that in Spain, the J is silent. You don't pronounce the J. I said, what you should have said was, I went to San Jose and San Juan. I said, when did you go? He said, last Hoon and July. But you know, these days, ladies and gentlemen, it's very hard to know the men from the women, isn't it? You don't know them. Honest to God, it's true. The other day at a bus stop, I was waiting for the bus and there was a person standing beside me and this teenager walked across the street and honestly, I didn't know whether it was a man or a woman. Would you believe that? I didn't. You don't know with the hair and all the gear. So I said to this person beside me, I said, look at that. You wouldn't know whether that was a man or a woman. And the person said, that's my daughter. So I said, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were her father. He said, I'm not, I'm her mother. But isn't it amazing sometimes how you can misunderstand what somebody means? Now, let me give you an instance. I was driving recently down in County Kerry, and I was going down this little country roadway in the car, and a woman passed me in her car. And as she passed my car, she put the window down of her car and shouted to me, pig! I said, this is nice, this is lovely. A nice, friendly Kerry custom, you know. Naturally, I was very upset, so I put down the window of my car and I told her off. And just then, I ran over a pig. Yeah. Irish humour is so beautiful. Now, I was passing a shoemaker shop recently, and I suddenly realised, you see, that I'd left a pair of shoes in there about 10 years ago to be repaired, and I never came back for them. And there's a fella standing outside the door, and I said, you know, funnily enough, I said, about 10 years ago, I put a pair of shoes in here to be repaired, and I never came back for them. He said, just a minute. And he went into the back of the shop, and he came out, and he said to me, they'll be ready on Friday. But we always seem to like religious stories in Ireland, don't we? And one evening at devotions, you see, the priest is in fantastic form. Oh, hell, fire and brimstone, he gave them the lot. And he said, remember this, every man, woman and child in this parish must one day die. They were all going like that, honestly God. Except one little fella, he started to laugh hysterically. He went into fits, he really did. And the priest said, I don't think you quite understood what I said. I said that every man, woman and child in this parish must one day die. And the fella said, well, I understood exactly what you meant. So the priest said, well, why are you laughing? And he said, I don't come from this parish at all. But talking about religion, there was this new curate, this new priest, you see, arrived in the parish. And of course, on the first Sunday, he wanted to try, naturally, to impress the congregation. So he got up into the pulpit during the Mass for the sermon, and God knows the poor man got carried away. And he went on so long that 12 o'clock Mass didn't finish till 1:15. So the following Sunday, he was preaching again, and this time he really got carried away. And he went on for hours, and 12 o'clock Mass got out at 2:15. And there's two of the lads walking back the road, and one said to the other, he said, what do you think of your man? And the fellow said, my God, he said, if he keeps that up, we won't feel the winter. There was these two fellas, Casey and Flanagan, and they were in a cinema watching a film of John Wayne. And Casey said to Flanagan, he said, I bet you £5 within the next 5 minutes, John Wayne will fall off his horse. And Flanagan said, it's a bet. So right enough, 5 minutes later, John Wayne does fall off his horse. And Flanagan said, well, he said, you win. But he said, before I pay you, tell me honestly, did you see the film before? And Casey said, I did. And Flanagan said, so did I, but I didn't think you'd do it again. Two of the lads met the other day again, Casey and Flanagan, and they met in the street, you see, and Flanagan has got his front door under his arm, you see, and Casey said, what are you doing with the front door? And Flanagan said, I lost the key. And Casey said, well, you better not lose the front door or you won't be able to get in. And Flanagan said, it doesn't matter, I left the window open. Well, you see, there you go. But this is what I like. There was this farmer, his wife, and his daughter, and they lived in this little farm in the heart of Donegal. And they were falling on hard times. Times were very, very bad, and they had one cow. And they decided they'd have to sell the cow. So the next morning, the father and the daughter got up, and they yoked up the ass and cart, and tied the cow at the back, and off they went to the fair, and they sold the cow for £60. And on the way back, they were held up by robbers, you see. And the robbers took everything and left the two of them standing in the middle of the road. And when they were gone, the father said to his daughter, my God, he said, what are we going to do now? How are we going to tell your mother? He said, we lost the cow, we lost the money, and we lost the ass and cart, you see. And the daughter said, Father, they didn't get the money, she said. He said, what do you mean? She said, I hid it. I hid it. And he said, where did you hide it? And she said, I hid it in me mouth. And the father said, my God, isn't it a pity your mother wasn't here? We'd have saved the ass and cart as well. But do you ever... Do you know what fascinates me, by the way? You know these newspaper ads, the matrimonial column, where the women are looking for the husbands and the men are looking for the wives, and they put an ad in the paper. Do you ever read them? Oh, they're very funny, some of them. This is one here I'm going to read to you now in the Donegal newspaper, and it goes something like this. It says, man with 10-ton truck would like to meet respectable woman with 2 good tires. With view to matrimony. P.S. Please send recent photograph of the tires. Well, there you are. You see, it's all there. But these two lads I was telling you about, Casey and Flanagan, they decided to climb Mount Everest. And they arrived at the mountain and they started to climb. I'm sorry for laughing, I know the ending of this. But listen, they decided... Yes, I think we all do. But however, they decided to climb Mount Everest and they got halfway up. Now, 28,000 feet mountain, Mount Everest. And they got halfway up. And halfway up, Casey said to Flanagan, my God, he said, I have a thirst you could photograph. He said, I'd love a drink. I'd love a pint. And Flanagan said, so do I. He said, so would I. He said, I'm absolutely parched. I love a drink. So Casey said, I tell you what we'll do. He says, we'll go back down to the village, he said, and we'll have a couple of pints. And we'll climb the other half tomorrow. But naturally, Americans love our country, ladies and gentlemen. You know, you all do. Most of you here tonight, I suppose, are American in one way or another. But, no, they do. They love us. And there was this little cafe, in the hills of County Clare. And this American couple went in there one day, you see, and they sat down in this little cafe to have a meal. And the waitress walked up. She says, yes, sir. And the American said, I'd like a 3-pound steak about 5 inches thick. 2 of them. The girl said, oh, God, she said, I'd have to ask the missus about that. So she went into the kitchen and she came out 5 minutes later and she said, the missus said to tell ye if we had that, we'd eat it ourselves. But smoking seems to be in the news today, isn't it? It seems to be the big topic of conversation. And, the government here have men going around Ireland today to deter people from smoking. And one of these government officials, you see, finished up in the heart of Donegal, and he saw this farmer in a field and a cigarette hanging out of the side of his mouth. And the fellow said from the health office, he said, now, he said, you shouldn't smoke because it's very bad for your health. So the farmer said to him, let me tell you something, he said. My father smoked 100 cigarettes a day, and he said he lived to be 103 years old. And he said, then he died. And he said, when he was dead 4 weeks, he said, they dug him up. And he looked better than you do now. But let me tell you something, building sites fascinate me. There was 2 fellas working on a building site here in Dublin. And one said to the other, he said, Flanagan, what's a cubic foot? And Flanagan said, I don't know, but claim for it anyway. This fella went to apply. You see, there was an advert in the newspaper and it said handyman wanted on a building site. So he arrived, you see, and he was talking to the foreman, and the foreman decided to take him on. So the foreman said, now you can start, he said, by doing a little bit of plumbing. And the fellow said, I know nothing about plumbing at all. And the foreman said, well, not to worry, he said, you can do a little bit of carpentry. And the fellow said, well, I know nothing at all about carpentry either, nothing at all. So the foreman said, well, not to worry, he said, you can do a little bit of bricklaying. And the fellow said, I know nothing about bricklaying either. So the boss man, the foreman said to him, he said, well, what's handy about you? And your man said, I only live around the corner. That's about it. I'd like to leave you now and thanking you very much for being so marvellous tonight with a few thoughts which I say most sincerely. And the first thought is this: if you can keep your head while all around you are losing theirs, then you obviously don't understand the situation. And remember that the poor shall inherit the earth, but not the oil rights, of course. And don't forget to keep Dublin clean and tidy. Eat a pigeon. And think about that, please. And the final thought is to live every day as if it's your last. And one day you'll be right.
Ladies and gentlemen, Hal Roach. Hal Roach, ladies and gentlemen.